Unit 1, Diversity in the Living World. Biology is the science of life forms and living processes. The living world comprises an amazing diversity of living organisms. Early man could easily perceive the difference between inanimate matter and living organisms. Early man defined some of the inanimate matter, wind, sea, fire, etc., and some among the animals and plants. A common feature of all such forms of inanimate and animate objects was the sense of awe or fear that they evoked. The description of living organisms, including human beings, began much later in human history. Societies which indulged in anthropocentric view of biology could register limited progress in biological knowledge. Systematic and monumental descriptions of life forms brought in, out of necessity, detailed systems of identification, nomenclature, and classification. The biggest spin off of such studies was the recognition of the sharing of similarities among living organisms, both horizontally and vertically. That all present day living organisms are related to each other and also to all organisms that ever lived on this earth was a revelation which humbled man and led to cultural movements for conservation of biodiversity. In the following chapters of this unit, you will get a description including classification of animals and plants from a taxonomist perspective. Chapter 1, The Living World. How wonderful is the living world! The wide range of living types is amazing. The extraordinary habitats in which we find living organisms, be it cold mountains, deciduous forests, oceans, freshwater lakes, deserts, or hot springs, leave us speechless. The beauty of a galloping horse, of the migrating birds, the valley of flowers, or attacking shark evokes awe and a deep sense of wonder. The ecological conflict and cooperation among members of a population and among populations of a community, or even the molecular traffic inside a cell, make us deeply reflect on what indeed is life. This question has two implicit questions within it. The first is a technical one and seeks answer to what living is as opposed to be non-living, and the second is a philosophical one and seeks answer to what the purpose of life is. As a scientist, we shall not attempt answering the second question. We will try to reflect on what is living. 1.1, Diversity in the living world. If you look around, you will see a large variety of living organisms, be it potted plants, insects, birds, your pet, or another animals and plants. There are also several organisms that you cannot see with your naked eye, but they are all around you. If you were to increase the area that you make observations in, the range and the variety of organisms that you see would increase. Obviously, if you were to visit a dense forest, you would probably see a much greater number and kinds of living organisms in it. Each different kind of plant, animal, or organism that you see represents a species. The number of species that are known and described range between 1.7 to 1.8 million. This refers to biodiversity or the number and types of organisms present on Earth. We should remember here that as we explore new areas and even old ones, new organisms are continuously being identified. As stated earlier, there are millions of plants and animals in the world. We know the plants and animals in our own area by their local names. These local names would vary from place to place. Even within a country, probably you would recognize the confusion that would be created if we did not find ways and means to talk to each other, to refer to organisms we are talking about. Hence, there is a need to standardize the naming of living organisms such that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. This process is called nomenclature. Obviously, nomenclature or naming is only possible when the organism is described correctly and we know to what organism the name is attached to. This is identification. In order to facilitate the study, number of scientists have established procedures to assign scientific names to each organism. This is acceptable to biologists all over the world. For plants, Scientific names are based on agreed principles and criteria, which are provided in International Code for Botanical Nomenclature (ICBN). You may ask, how are animals named? Animal taxonomists have evolved International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. The scientific names ensure that each organism has only one name. Description of any organism should enable the people in any part of the world to arrive at the same name. They also ensure that such a name has not been used for any other known organisms. Biologists follow universally accepted principles to provide scientific names to known organisms. Each organism has two components, the generic name and the specific epithet. This system of providing a name with two components is called binomial nomenclature. This naming system given by Carolus Linnaeus is being practiced by biologists all over the world. This naming system using a two-word format was found convenient. Let us take the example of mango to understand the way of providing scientific names better. The scientific name of mango is written as Mangifera indica. Let us see how it is a binomial name. In this name, Mangifera represents the genus, while indica is a particular species or a specific epithet. Other universal rules of nomenclature are as follows. Biological names are generally in Latin and written in italics. They are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. The first word in a biological name represents the genus, while the second component denotes the specific epithet. Both the words in a biological name, when handwritten, are separately underlined or printed in italics to indicate their Latin origin. The first word denoting the genus starts with a capital letter, while the specific epithet starts with a small letter. It can be illustrated with the example of Mangifera indica. Name of the author appears after the specific epithet, that is at the end of the biological name, and is written in an abbreviated form. Example, Mangifera indica Linn. It indicates that this species was first described by Linnaeus. Since it is nearly impossible to study all the living organisms, it is necessary to devise some means to make this possible. This process is classification. Classification is the process by which anything is grouped into convenient category based on some easily observable characters. For example, we easily recognize groups such as plants or animals or dogs, cats or insects. The moment we use any of these terms, we associated certain characters with the organisms in that group. What image do you see when you think of a dog? Obviously, each one of us will say dogs and not cats. Now, if we were to think of Alastians, we know that we are talking about. Similarly, suppose we were to say mammals. You would, of course, think of animals with external ears and body hair. Likewise, in plants, if we try to talk of wheat, the picture in each of our minds will be of wheat plant, not of rice or any other plant. Hence, all these dogs, cats, mammals, wheat, rice, plants, animals, etc. are convenient category we use to study organisms. The scientific term for these categories is taxa. Here you must recognize that taxa can indicate categories at very different levels. Plants also form a taxa. Wheat is also a taxa. Similarly, animals, mammals, dogs are also taxa. But you know that a dog is a mammal and mammal are animals. Therefore, animals, mammals, and dogs represent taxa at different levels. Hence, based on characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This process of classification is taxonomy. External and internal structures, along with the structures of cell, development, process, and ecological informations of organisms, are essential and form the basis of modern taxonomic studies. Hence, characterization, identification, classification, and nomenclature are the process that are basic to taxonomy. Taxonomy is not something new. Human beings have always been interested in knowing more and more about the various kinds of organisms, particularly with reference to their own use. In early days, human beings needed to find sources for their basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter. Hence, the earliest classification were based on the uses of various organisms. Human beings were since long not only interested in knowing more about different kinds of organisms and their diversities, but also the relationships among them. This branch of study was referred to as systematics. The word systematics is derived from the Latin word systema, which means systematic arrangement of organisms. Linnaeus used Systema Naturae as the title of his publication. The scope of systematics was later enlarged to include identification, nomenclature, and classification. Systematic takes into account evolutionary relationships between organisms. Taxonomic categories. Classification is not a single step process but involves hierarchy of steps in which each step represents a rank or a category. Since the category is a part of overall taxonomic arrangement, it is called the taxonomic category and all the categories together constitute the taxonomic hierarchy. Each category referred to as a unit of classification. In fact, represents a rank and is commonly termed as a taxon, plural taxa. Taxonomic categories and hierarchy can be illustrated by an example. Insects represent a group of organisms sharing common features like three pair of jointed legs. It means insects are recognizable concrete objects which can be classified and thus were given a rank or a category. Can you name other groups of organisms? Remember, groups represent category. Category further denotes rank. Each rank or taxon in fact represent a unit of classification. These taxonomic groups, categories are distinct biological entities and not merely morphologically aggregates. Taxonomic studies of all known organisms have led to the development of common categories such as kingdom, phylum, or division for plants, class, order, family, genus, and species. All organisms, including those in the plant and animal kingdom, have species as the lowest category. Now, the question you may ask is how to place an organism in various categories. The basic requirement is the knowledge of characters of an individual or group of organisms. This helps in identifying similarities and dissimilarities among the individuals of the same kind of organism, as well as of the other kinds of organism. Species. Taxonomic studies consider a group of individual organisms with fundamental similarities as a species. One should be able to distinguish one species from the other closely related species based on the distinct morphological differences. Let us consider Mangifera indica, Solanum tuberosum potato, and Panthera leo loyon. All the three names, indica, tuberosum, and leo, represent the specific epithets, while the first word, Mangifera, Solanum, and Panthera, are genera and represent another higher level of taxon or category. Each genus may have one or more than one specific epithet, representing different organisms but having morphological similarities. For example, Panthera has another specific epithet called tigris, and Solanum includes species like nigrum and melogena. Human beings belong to the species Sapiens, which is grouped in the genus Homo. The scientific name, thus, for human being is written as Homo sapiens. Genus. Genus comprises a group of related species which has more character in common in comparison to species of other genera. We can say that genera are aggregate of closely related species. For example, potato and brinjal are two different species, but both belong to the genus Solanum, lion, lion, Panthera leo, leopard, Panthera pardus, and tiger, Panthera tigris. With several common features are all species of the genus Panthera. This genus differs from another genus, Felis, which includes cats. Family. The next category, family, has a group of related genera with still less number of similarities as compared to genus and species. Families are characterized on the basis of both vegetative and reproductive features of plant species. Among plants, for example, three different genera Solanum, Petunia, and Datura are placed in the family Solanaceae. Among animals, for example, genus Panthera comprising lion, tiger, leopard is putting along with genus Felis cat in the family Felidae. Similarly, if you observe the features of a cat and a dog, you will find some similarities and some difference as well. They are separated into different families, Felidae and Canidae respectively. Order. You have seen earlier that categories like species, genus, and families are based on a number of similar characters. Generally, order and other higher taxonomic categories are identified based on the aggregates of characters. Order, being a higher category, is the assemblage of family which exhibit a few similar characters. The similar characters are less in number as compared to different genera included in the family. Plant families like Convolvulaceae, Solanaceae are included in the order Polymonians, mainly based on the floral characters. The animal order Carnivora includes families like Felidae and Canidae. Class. This category includes related orders. For example, order Primata, comprising monkey, gorilla, and gibbon, is placed in class Mammalia, along with order Carnivora, that includes animals like tiger, cat, and dog. Class Mammalia has the other orders also. Phylum. Classes comprising animals like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, along with mammals, constitute the next higher category called phylum. All these based on the common features like presence of a notochord and dorsal hollow neural system are included in phylum Chordata. In case of plants, classes with a few similar characters are assigned to a higher category called division. Kingdom. All animals belonging to various phyla are assigned to the highest category called kingdom Animalia in the classification system of animals. The kingdom Plantae, on the other hand, is distinct and comprises all plants from various divisions. Henceforth, we will refer to these two groups as animals and plant kingdoms. The taxonomic categories from species to kingdom have been shown in ascending order, starting with species in figure 1.1. These are broad categories. However, taxonomists have also developed subcategories. Taxonomists have also developed subcategories in this hierarchy to facilitate more sound and scientific placement of various taxa. Look at the hierarchy in figure 1.1. Can you recall the basis of arrangement? Say, for example, as we go higher from species to kingdom, the number of common characteristics goes on decreasing. Lower the taxa, more are the characteristics that the members within the taxon share. Higher the category, greater is the difficulty of determining the relationship to the other taxa at the same level. Hence, the problem of classification becomes more complex. Table 1.1 indicates the taxonomic categories to which some common organisms like housefly, man, mango, and wheat belongs. Summary. The living world is rich in variety. Millions of plants and animals have been identified and described, but a large number still remains unknown. The very range of organisms in terms of size, color, habitat, physiological and morphological features make us seek the defining characteristics of living organisms. In order to facilitate the study of kinds and diversity of organisms, biologists have evolved certain rules and principles for identification, nomenclature, and classification of organisms. The branch of knowledge dealing with these aspects is referred to as a taxonomy. The taxonomic studies of various species of plants and animals are useful in agriculture, forestry, industry, and in general for knowing our bioresources and their diversity. The basic of taxonomic like identification, naming, and classification of organisms are universally evolved under international codes based on the resemblance and distinct differences. Each organism is identified and assigned a correct scientific biological name comprising two words as per the binomial based on the resemblance based on the resemblances and distinct differences. Each organism is identified and assigned a correct scientific biological name comprising two words as per the binomial system of nomenclature. An organism represents occupies a place or position in the system of classification. There are many other ranks which are generally referred to as the taxonomic categories or taxa. All the categories constitute a taxonomic hierarchy.